actually regulates the building code, which is the Board of Building Regulation and Standards, to develop the stretch code and then to explain it. So it's been a partnership between our two offices. This is a map of who had adopted the stretch code as of May 28th. I don't think anyone's done it since then. We sort of kind of rushed on them in the spring, especially when town meetings were happening. And we'll probably have a few more in the fall, but then there'll be another rush next winter and spring. Cities can do it any time that there's a city council meeting, but towns generally only have their town meetings at certain times of the year. So for the builders, you know this, that the state has had a uniform statewide building code since 1975. Municipal building officials right here enforce it. It covers all aspects of putting up a building. Energy conservation is only one of them, but the stretch code only applies to the energy conservation part. Just as a quick introduction, what affects energy use, which is what the stretch code is about. First, the size of the building. Second, air leaking out. If you heat the building and then you just let it go out again, you're wasting a lot of energy. Third is heat transfer through the solid materials, the walls, the windows, etc. And then finally, the efficiency of the equipment in the building. The stretch code is going to affect 2, 3, and 4, but is not going to affect the size of the building. We're not trying to regulate that. Even without the stretch code, Massachusetts is getting a lot more efficient. In 2008, the Green Communities Act required that we adopt the latest international energy conservation code within 1 year of its publication, and it comes out every 3 years. So the latest one came out in 2009, and it became mandatory statewide just a month ago. So everybody in the state now has to go by the IECC 2009, which by itself is a significant improvement over past versions, and will save a lot of energy. When we wrote the stretch code, we still had the 2006 IECC in effect, and the stretch code was quite a substantial improvement over the 2006 version. It's less of an improvement over the 2009 version, so the difference between the stretch code and the statewide code is actually not as big as one might think at this point. For commercial buildings, we also adopted the IECC 2009, which is quite similar to the ASHRAE standard, the most recent version of that. All right. One thing that's interesting to know is that even without the stretch code, the electric utilities in Massachusetts have been giving builders incentives to do Energy Star homes. The builders in the room, raise your hand. Has anybody taken advantage of that in the past to build an Energy Star home? So two people here. No, one company. Well, let me just interrupt my own presentation to ask, for the two of you, when you did this, did you have any problems doing it?
He did it.
All right.
No.
Was there any problem?
No. It was actually relatively easy. The advice we got when we hired a HERS rater at the start of the project set us up very clearly that no one needed to do it in 100% challenge at all.
Okay, and you got rebates from the utilities? All right, so there's some evidence that the Energy Star Homes program is virtually the same thing as the stretch code. And that's one reason why we don't anticipate problems. 2 years ago, Energy Star homes were something like 15% of new construction in the state. Last year, it was up to 1/3 of all new homes. So that's, again, some more evidence that this is something that's quite reasonable to do. There are incentives when you do it. The utilities will provide about $650 per home for a house that's 30% better than the reference home, plus another $650 to pay for the HERS rater. So it's about $1,300 altogether. And then there are also some additional rebates on particular appliances, like the gas companies will give you a rebate of $400 or $500, or even up to $70,000 for a very efficient heating system. Now, for residential new construction, the requirements are quite specific. You have to use the HERS rating system, and you have to hire a HERS rater to do that, and the HERS rater uses the software. You guys are HERS raters? Okay. The HERS rating system, this is a little tricky doing the comparisons. It was set up so that 100 on the HERS rating was meant to represent the average new home, or a home built to code in Massachusetts. That was, however, the 2006 version of the code. So this 100 here was 2006 code, right? Massachusetts has now gone to the 2009 code, which is stricter. The HERS software that HERS raters use, however, is still going to be done relative to the 2006 code. The HERS organization nationally is not going to change that, all right? And what that means is that if you build a house anywhere in Massachusetts going by the 2009 code, you're going to come out better than 100 to start off with. And we think it's going to be different for every house, but you're probably going to come out somewhere around an 85 on the HERS index. All right? It'll no longer be 100. It's probably a little easier. You'll get a slightly better rating if you're building a bigger house. And a smaller one, it'll depend on what kind of heating system it has and so on. All right? So the stretch code requires for a house under 3,000 square feet that you get a 70 HERS rating. If it's more than 3,000 square feet, you have to get a 65. All right? We used to say that that meant this was 30% better than base code. It's no longer the case. Because of the new base code, which will get you already to about 85, we would now say the stretch code is, say, 15 to 20% better than the base code. All right? The difference between 85 and 70 or 65. I know that's a lot of numbers, a little confusing. Is that hear what I'm saying here?
Basically, what you're saying is the lower number you get, the better your house rating is.
Right.
Okay.
And but what I'm also saying is that because statewide we've gone to a stricter code, the stretch code is no longer that much of a difference from what you would have to do in any community in the state. Right? You have to get a certified HERS rater. The HERS rater will review your building plans before you start, and using the software will tell you if you build a house this way, this is the rating you ought to get. But then they also have to check how you do the work. They have to check how you install the insulation, and the quality of that will make a significant difference. And they have to test how well the building is sealed for air leakages, which you do with blower door and duct